Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As we greet you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh here in Brussels, in Belgium, on this sunny afternoon. This is the month of Shawwal, the month which comes after Ramadan. If you know the answer, just show your hand. What day of the month is it today? No, I don't want to hear your voice. Just put your hand so I know you're prepared to answer. Okay? Are you prepared to answer? Before you had your hands? Okay, anybody? Which one? What day of the month is it today?
21 Shawwal.
21.
Shawwal.
21.
Shawwal.
11:20.
Well, you probably started one day after me, because for me, today is the 22nd day. And I was reading a biography of the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, who spent several years in prison. The British put him in prison. And he says that while he was in prison, he was able to calculate the day of the month fairly accurately by just looking at the moon. He comments upon how the moon changes in shape during the month. And if you observe the moon carefully through the month, you'll be able to tell fairly accurately what day of the month it is. And that is a Hindu. And we have the Quran, which speaks about the moon and the Quran. So we'll come to that, inshallah. So our topic is falling in love with the Quran. And we begin with the function or role of the Quran in our lives. And I have to proceed fairly rapidly in order to be able to complete what I want to do in this time frame. I hope you don't mind. When our father Adam, alayhi salam, and his wife, known as Eve, but we know her as Hawa, when they were expelled from heaven to come and live on earth, Allah then said to them that I will send to you guidance. For whoever follows my guidance, you will have no cause for fear and for grief. So Allah has been sending His guidance from that time to this time. If He had created us and sent us on earth and not provided any guidance, it will be like a manufacturer manufacturing a motor car, sophisticated motor car, and not providing a handbook with information about the car. How must you maintain the car? With information about the car, how must you maintain the car? You import it from China, 10 feet by 10 feet. It comes in a box. And when you take it out, you don't know what to do with it until you look at the instructions. And they then tell you, this is what to do, open it this way, that way, then you have to put this and that and that. And then you have a nice tent. Guidance. You don't turn to the Quran for guidance. then you're going to suffer in life. You will be like a boat in the ocean. Anywhere the wind blows, you go in that direction. And at the end of your life, you would have achieved nothing, and you leave this life in utter frustration. To send his guidance to mankind, he has to send someone who will explain it. And of all those who he sent, the one who stands tallest of all is our father, Abraham. Ibrahim alayhi salam. Even the Hindu honors, he calls him the god known as Brahma. Brahma, Ibrahim. So whether you are Christian, you're a Jew, you're a Hindu, you're a Muslim, you all have a common father in Abraham. And so we learn about guidance coming in scriptures, different scriptures, and guidance coming with different prophets. You may call them prophets, you may call them messengers, you may call them apostles, but they're all the same. We have a young student to welcome here today.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Farooq, come Farooq. MashaAllah, Farooq. Okay. I'm already taking too much time on this. And so now, one God, one truth, one way of life, that is the religious way of life, and the word in the Quran is deen, one deen. And that deen is submission to the one God. That's Islam. Submission to the one God. Now prepare yourself. Allah says in the Quran that He has sent to each community the one who follows this prophet, the one who follows that one, and the one who follows the last prophet. To each have I sent, to each one of you have I sent a sacred law. So they have a sacred law which says that on the Sabbath day, you're not allowed to work. You can pray and you can rest, but you're not allowed to work. The law of the Sabbath. But He didn't give that law of the Sabbath to others. Right? They have it. I don't have it. So to each community, He gave a sacred law. And He also gave a spiritual path, a minhaj. He could have caused all of you to become one community. But He's not done that. He says to each community, including the one that came last of all, to each of you, He said, you must compete with each other. Fastabikul khairat. Compete with each other in all that is good. Now, I'm already beginning to suspect This lecture is going to last 2 hours. إِلَى اللَّهِ مَرْجِعُكُمْ جَمِيعًا. This is Surah Al-Ma'idah. إِلَى اللَّهِ مَرْجِعُكُمْ جَمِيعًا. All of you, each of you will come back to me. فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ فِيهِ تَخْتَلِفُونَ. And I will explain to you those matters wherein you differed. Does anyone differ with the Lord God? Now then, it is therefore false for anyone to say, we are the only community to go to heaven. And all of mankind have to come to this community in order to go to heaven. That's false. Does anyone differ? Well, the prevailing nonsense that we have in this community, which follows Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the prevailing nonsense is that you have to join this ummah in order to go to heaven. There's no other way. That's the prevailing nonsense. The Quran provides guidance, and that guidance comes in a form which is first of all external and then internal. The external guidance are the rules. Do this and don't do that. The laws that you must follow. That if you want to have intimate relations with a woman, you must have marriage. You have to marry her. And if you have intimate relations with her and you're not married, the law says that you are violating the law and you have to be punished. The law which has come requires you that you should be covered. You must cover yourself. For the male, there is covering. For the female, there is covering. The Lord God, in His wisdom, has given to the woman far, far, far more beauty than the man, so she has more covering to do. And if you follow this guidance, then of course you can move forward. But if you want, excuse me, if you want to dance on the road naked like a monkey in Monkey Town, then you're going on the wrong path. Now, this is not to say that there are not men who are handsome, because there was once a man who was so handsome, when the woman saw him, they cut their hands. So this is guidance. And if you're not following the external law, the external rules and regulations, how can you enter into the internal world? The Quran is comprised of two kinds of verses, as I told you in the restaurant. In His wisdom, He has given us ayat muhkamat, verses which are plain and clear, not only in the Quran, but in the Gospel, in the Torah, in the Zabur, the Psalms of David, in the Vedas, in all scriptures. Those verses which are plain and clear. You don't need a PhD from MIT to understand them. And these are the heart of the book. And then there are verses which have to be interpreted. They are called ayat mutashabihat. You'll find them in every scripture. You cannot understand them unless you interpret them. But you cannot interpret them based on the external law, external rules. You need more than that. You need to combine the external with something else, the internal. And when these two are combined, you can then attempt to interpret. And that internal knowledge that you need, that is what the Quran has spoken of. To each we have given, to the Christian, to the Jew, to the Hindu, to the Muslim, to each we have given a Sharia, a sacred law, and a minhaj, a spiritual path. It is through this path that you'll get the insight to be able to interpret. The Quran warns us about dangers that will come to the world in the end time. There are several verses of the Quran which warns us about the dangers that come in the end time. For example, in Surah Al-Anfal, and fear that trial, that test, that trial, which will not target only those who are wicked, but will target everybody. And be conscious of the fact that Allah is terrible in His punishment. And so, the Quran has said that it will protect you in that time when there is danger all around you. But the Quran can only protect you if you are true and faithful to the Quran. This is what Allah says in Surah Al-Isra. And when you recite the Quran, I will place between you and those who reject the life hereafter. That is this civilization. They don't believe in a hereafter. They don't believe in heaven and hell. They don't even believe in the angels. They don't believe in the day of judgment. Not this civilization. They said goodbye to that many moons ago. So I'll place between you and those who do not believe in the hereafter, I will place a hijab, a curtain, which will be mastur, which will cover you and protect you. So this is a hijab which separates you from them. And this is a hijab which will cover you and protect you. So here is wonderful news, good news for us in this dangerous world in which we live, in which we need protection. And Allah says, this Quran will protect you if you recite this Quran. But you have to recite the Quran as it ought to be recited. Then Allah will place between you and them a hijab which will separate you and protect you, cover you and protect you. Perhaps the greatest danger, perhaps the greatest and most dangerous attack of all in this age. Let me hear you. What did you say? What do you say? The most dangerous? No. Danger to us. What danger? Is it the danger in the world of money? The monetary danger? Is
Technology.
It? Huh?
Technology.
Technology, okay?
Every day.
Where's Armenia? Let me hear Armenia.
Media.
What? The media?
Not
Nuclear
I
war?
think our ego.
Huh?
Our ego.
The ego?
Live in
Not-
Islam.
What about the sister, yeah?
La destruction de la famille.
destruction.
Family destruction.
Huh?
Destruction of the family.
The destruction of the family. You all are putting your fingers on the button.
Not
You all are pointing to extremely dangerous things. All of you.
not
But-
not learning the Quran.
But,
Discrimination.
but, when you study the Quran,
La destruction de l'esprit.
when you study the Quran tells you that the Antichrist is a jasad. He is a human being, the Antichrist. But he does not have the ruh that we have as a human being, the spirit, a jasad. So he does not have a free will. Free will, a self-directed will, the capacity to choose a free choice. He doesn't have that. He does not have the capacity to think independently. And therefore, to acquire knowledge on the basis of an intellectual effort. And so, he is in some respects like an automaton. Others think for him. Others choose for him. And he wants to cause all of us to become jasads like himself. When we become jasads, we lose the capacity to think independently. And so others will think for us. And we lose the capacity to choose independently. And so others will choose for us. And we become like sheep and cattle.
Viendront comme des bêtes.
And so the most dangerous attack which we are facing today is the attack on the human mind. Even when you are not aware of it, your mind is being programmed. An adult has more capacity to resist the programming, the brainwashing, but a child has no capacity to do that. So his strategy is to rob us of our children. All over the Western world today, that strategy is being enforced. We'll take your children away from you. Your child might be sitting at the table with you, eating with you, sleeping in the room you put for the children to sleep. But you're losing your child because your child's mind is being taken away. That is the most dangerous one of all. After the attack on the children, the next most dangerous attack is on the woman. And our woman will become brainwashed by him if they lose the capacity to think independently and to choose independently. I have to confess, I am amazed. I am absolutely amazed that Allah has sent to me women, including young women, who have an amazing capacity to think. An amazing. I learn from them. Yes, they explain things to me. Okay? So there are amongst our women those who have resisted. They didn't take, they didn't take the vaccine. They didn't take the vaccine. They still have the capacity. If I could bring one of them here with me today in this gathering, you would be amazed when you listen to her. And so, number one is the children. Number two is the woman. What can we do to recover our minds? What can we do to heal the mind which has been damaged? In particularly the child. In particular the child. What can we do? And Allah says in the Quran, and we have sent down in this Quran that which heals, shifa, and which is rahmah for the believers, kindness for the believers. That which heals, most of all, heals the heart, because the mind is simply a piece of flesh, the brain. The heart does the thinking, heals the heart. So the father and the mother who have some knowledge in their heads would ensure that they train their children to recite the Quran, to recite the scripture. I have a brother of mine who is a teacher of the gospel. He's in France. He teaches the gospel there. Train our children to recite the Quran, and they must recite it every day. And they must recite it the way Allah recited it. And this is the best protection that a child can have. Finally, there are those who have light in their hearts and those who don't. And Allah says the function of this Quran is to take you out of darkness and take you to light. Min az-zulumati ila an-nur. The function of this Quran is to take you out of darkness and take you to light. I'm going to take, I wish I didn't have this to take so much time, but I have to do it. So you have to excuse me.
It's no problem.
I have to take a verse of the Quran now and spend a little time with it in order to teach the subject of light and the Quran. There is a whole surah of the Quran named the Surah of Light, Surah An-Nur. And in this surah there is a verse which is called the verse of light. And perhaps, I don't know, maybe a Hindu might understand it better than a Muslim. Yeah? Maybe a Christian would understand it more than a Muslim, because I don't know what this Ummah is doing with the Quran. Yeah? We have the Quran, but others might understand it better than we do. It says, "Ba'da'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." Allah is the light of the samawat and the earth, for want of a better word, the heavens and the earth. Which means that His light is everywhere. Everywhere. مَثَلُ نُورِهِ كَمِشْكَاتٍ. To understand this subject of his life, I must take you, he says, I must take you to a hollow space. Mishkat is a hollow space. In the days when we did not have electricity, we used to have lamps. And you'd have to put the lamp on the wall. So you have a niche in the wall where to place the lamp. That niche is the mishkat, or the hollow space. Go ahead. Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. Mathalu nurihi kamishkat. Fiha misbah. In that hollow space which is in the chest, there is a lamp. So we have moved from external light to internal light. Light is everywhere. We are moving from external light to internal light. Al-misbahu fi zujaja. That lamp has a glass around it. The Wade, who is sitting at the back there, will tell you, because he has studied physics and he studied light, and he'll tell you that light is comprised of so many different colors, but the colors are based upon the density through which the light passes. When there's a certain density, he says the sky is blue. It's not that Allah has brought a blue light and covered the sky with a blue light. It is the light is now passing through a density which brings it out as color blue. So we have a glass. And Allah calls that glass zujaja. That's mizbahu fi zujaja. And he says about the glass, الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري. That glass is so spotlessly clean that it glitters like a shining star. And there's someone who is constantly watching the glass, because Allah says in Surah Al-Anfal, and be conscious of the fact that Allah constantly hovers between a man or a woman and his heart. وَاعْلَمُوا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه. We all commit sins, including Imran Khan. All of us commit sins. But if we make tawbah, we turn away from that path, and we seek forgiveness sincerely, then that spot which was there on the glass can be removed. The spot on the glass, the spot which is on the glass, can be erased. But in addition to the sins that we have committed in life, there's also our negligence. We become too preoccupied with the dunya. My business is so much more important to me than Allah. My job is more important. I want to remain forever young. So all the cosmetics are more important. And so dust gathers on the glass. And so we need to polish the glass to remove the dust. Some people, in some Sharia, in order to polish that glass, you have to go to something called an ashram. An ashram. Or you have to go to the monastic way of life. Huh? Or you have to go into khalwa, yeah? To get away from the world, to try to polish the glass. You have to go in i'tikaf. Jawaharlal Nehru, Prime Minister of India, came from a very, very strict Brahmin, Kashmiri Brahmin family. His father was a very famous Pandit Motilal Nehru, very wealthy lawyer and famous, a strict Brahmin. And his daughter fell in love with a Muslim who was a very talented Muslim. And she said, why can't I marry him? But the father cannot tolerate that. So they sent her to an ashram. Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi had this ashram. And she spent a whole year in that ashram, living like a village girl, until she was able to remove sufficiently that love for the Muslim man, that she came back and be consented to marry to another Brahmin. And so it is possible through the remembrance of Allah. The Arabic word is zikr. The zikr of Allah can cause the glass to be polished. And the scripture which comes down from the Lord God, whether it be the Quran or the Gospel or the Torah, is zikr. So by attaching yourself to the scripture, reciting it constantly, the glass can be polished. This lamp is lit with an oil, and the oil comes from a blessed olive tree. And this olive tree leans neither to this side or to that side, east or west, but stands firmly for Allah. The oil is so pure that it is already glowing, even though fire has not as yet touched it. Right. This is the road to light. يَكَادُ زَيْتُهَا يُضِيءُ وَلَوْ لَمْ تَمْسَسْهُ نَارٌ. Even though fire has not as yet touched it, it's already glowing. And then Allah says, when fire touches it, when that lamp is ever lit, He says, Nurun ala nur. Light upon light, upon light, upon light. There is no limit. There is no limit now. Light, Nurun ala nur. Light upon light. And Allah guides to His nur whomsoever Allah chooses. So it's not the government that decides. No, it's not some priest or some church which decides and defends His nur. No, it's not the Pope in Rome. No, Allah chooses whomsoever He wishes, and He gives that person nur. And Allah has presented this as a lesson for mankind. وَيَضْرِبَ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ. And Allah has presented this verse as a lesson to be learned by mankind. Now listen. Now listen. Now listen. وَاللَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. Wallahu bikulli shay'in alim. This is the verse of light. This is the verse of internal purification or tazkiyah. This is the verse of kindling the fire. This is the verse of light upon light upon light. And yet, how does he end it? He says, and Allah has knowledge of all things. Hence, that light is meant for knowledge. That the spiritual struggle is meant for knowledge. It's not external knowledge, it's internal knowledge. If all of these things are to come to us from the Quran, the beginning is to recite the Quran. How to recite the Quran. I don't have another 2 or 3 hours there. I don't have it. Malheureusement. Right? But you'll have to read the book, the Quran in the Moon. Quran al-Alun. I'll have to put 2 to 3 hours worth of lecturing now into 10, 15 minutes. So you have to show some pity on me. It's 2 to 3 hours worth of lecturing and put it in 10 to 15 minutes. I don't have the time to teach you the methodology for the study of the Quran. Nor do I have the time to teach you the methodology for the recitation of the Quran, but I could introduce it. The Quran came down in 2 ways. Of course, we know it came down on the night of power, the night of Qadr. But from the lowest Sama, it came down to mankind in 2 ways. The first one is that the angel Gabriel, alayhi salam, would bring portions, parts of the Quran, and reveal them to the heart of the Prophet. Allah's blessing be upon him. And this is called revelation, wahi, revelation. And the first one came when he was in the cave, and the second one came when the third came. And from the time it entered into his heart, he memorized it instantly. And this continued for 23 years before the last revelation came down. And Allah says, one of the reasons for doing this is to strengthen your heart. But the Quran came down a second way. And this was not to the heart. No. This was to the air. And this did not come down in bits and pieces. This was a recitation. This is not revelation or wahi. This is recitation or qira'ah. And it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He recited the Quran to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. The whole Quran was recited to him in 1 month, Ramadan. Every night, Allah will recite a portion. And he completed the whole Quran in 1 month. And this happened every Ramadan. But then, while Allah was reciting the Quran to him every night of Ramadan, twice in the Quran Allah had to stop him. Twice. Stop what you're doing. Don't move your tongue so swiftly with this Quran. You heard it? لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. Don't do that. Stop what you're doing. Allah is speaking to the Prophet. And then in another part of the Quran, this is Surah Al-Qiyamah, and that is Surah Taha. وَلَا تَعْجَلْ بِالْقُرْآنِ وَلَا تَعْجَلْ بِالْقُرْآنِ. Stop. Don't hasten with the Quran. What was the Prophet doing? You say, what was the Prophet doing when he was? Well, I can't hear you. What you said?
She said that he was reciting fast to learn more.
To learn more.
Faster.
Anybody else?
Pour les mémoriser.
Ethiopia, let me hear.
You make it faster because you want to understand immediately.
To understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody else?
To memorize.
That's right, Ibrahim. That's right, Ibrahim. He was moving his tongue rapidly because he was hearing verses of the Quran he didn't know about. It had not come down as wahi as yet, so he wanted to memorize it. So then Allah said, وَلَا تَعْجَلْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ وَحْيُهُ. Do not hasten with this Quran. Wait until the wahi is completed, the revelation is completed. Then you will memorize the whole Quran. But he might remember some. Huh? Is that not possible? That has not as yet come down as wahi. He might remember some of it. Is that possible? Yes. Good. Now listen. سَنُقْرِئُكَ. I'm going to teach you to recite. فَلَا تَنْسَى. And when I teach you to recite this Quran, you will not forget what I teach you. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ Allah. And when I teach you to recite this Quran, you will not forget what I teach you except that which I ordain that you forget. Right? I'm going to stop now. Let me hear. Let me see if we have some thinkers here. I expect everybody to give me the right answer now. I expect everyone to give me the right answer. If you don't, I send you back home. I am going to teach you to recite this Quran. And when I teach you to recite this Quran, you will not forget what I teach you, except that which I ordain that you forget. What is it that he's going to forget?
The parts not coming for wahi.
That's right. That's right. Let me hear.
Les versets qu'il faut
Same thing.
réciter.
Same.
Descendu.
Descendu.
Descendu d'abord.
Descendu.
Right? I have good students. That portion of the Quran that he is hearing, which has not as yet come down as wahi, Allah causes it to be erased from his memory. So the next year, when the Quran is being recited again in Ramadan, he'll be hearing it for the first time because he has no memory. Go ahead. And so, every night of Ramadan, it is Allah who is reciting the Quran, but he's using the medium of the angel Gabriel. But it is Allah who is reciting the Quran. Where is the proof? Where is the proof? Which surah? Give me the name of the surah. Suratul Qiyamah is correct.
وإذا قرأناه فاتبع قرآن.
Yes, that's right. لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. Don't move your tongue with haste to memorize this Quran. Inna alayna jam'ahu. This is our responsibility. We will first of all bring all the verses together as a whole. So far, you're only getting pieces. Wa Qur'ana. And when we have brought all the parts together as a whole, we will recite this Quran. Now comes the proof. فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ. And when, I'm going to use the first person, and when I have recited this Quran to you, فَاتَّبِعْ Qur'ana. You must follow the way that I have recited. ثُمَّ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا بَيَانًا. And when I have recited this Quran, and you have followed my way of recitation, only then, not before, only then will I explain this Quran to you. And so if you attempt to study this Quran without reciting the Quran the way Allah recited it, you are on a road leading to nowhere. And that is why our enemies have never succeeded in penetrating the Quran. They have PhDs and they're teaching in universities and they are directors of PhD thesis, but they have no capacity to penetrate the Quran. And so now I've done enough for you today. It is for you now to learn how to recite the Quran with the moon. Réciter le Coran avec la lune. And when you learn to recite the Quran with the moon, you then learn to live with the moon. Vivez avec la lune. When you learn to live with the moon, you will now live in the system of time. The system of time. Let me repeat it one more time. When you learn to recite the Quran with the moon, and you learn to live with the moon, you will now learn, You will now live within the system of time that Allah has created. When you abandon that system of time that Allah has created, and of course, you know when you do that. You know when you abandon the system of time that Allah has created, because the evidence is staring you in your faces that you've abandoned, you've betrayed the system of time that Allah has created. The evidence I'm going to give you now. Allah says that He gave us the moon to count the years. لِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ, to count the years, وَالْحِسَابِ, and to compute time. And you know that any man who has several wives must have a PhD in psychology.
That's right.
And sometimes even a PhD in psychology is not enough. So the Prophet ﷺ had some problems. And the problem becomes so great that he said, I'm going to separate myself from all of you for 1 month. When the 29th day of the month came to an end, he came out of his seclusion and he went to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. And she said, why have you come? The month is not yet ended. Aisha, sometimes the month has 29 days and sometimes 30. And he said, no, Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is wrong. I'm going to teach you the correct thing. He said a month can have 28 days. He said a month can have 28 days. He said a month can have 31 days. And all the sheep and the cattle and the goats and the camels accepted Dajjal and followed him. Allah says, and they questioned thee about the crescent moon. Tell them that the crescent moon is there for the measurement of time. Today, nobody, except a small group, lives by the crescent moon and know when the month begins. We even have people now who are living in Britain, but their moon is in Saudi Arabia. Amazing, eh? They're living in Britain, but their moon is in Morocco. When you abandon the sacred time that Allah has created, the system of sacred time, and you accept the system of secular mechanical time that has come from Dajjal, then the heart is going to be damaged. The heart will no longer beat in harmony with the rest of Allah's creation. It is like a motor car which is out of tune. You have to go to the garage and the mechanic has to ensure that the engine is tuned. If you drive that engine which is out of tune, not only will the performance of the car deteriorate, but eventually the engine will stop working. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, he said that the time will come when time will move faster and yet faster. Sorry. No, this is my frustration.
Yes.
Because I am talking and they don't listen. I've been talking for 25 years and they wouldn't listen. So this is my frustration. And nobody else is teaching it. Nobody else is teaching it. He said the time will move faster and yet faster. And a whole year will pass like a month. And a whole month will pass like a week. And a whole week will pass like a day. And the whole day will pass like the amount of time it takes to kindle a fire. But it is not time moving faster. The moon is punctual. It is our heart which is perceiving time moving faster. If your heart is perceiving time moving faster, you're sick. Your heart is sick. And if that heart is sick because it is moving in a different system of time, Noor cannot enter into that sick heart. So you can get your PhD from the Sorbonne, but you still remain as blind as a bat. So then how to return to the sacred time created by Allah? How to learn to live once again with the moon? Answer for the Quran. Recite the Quran. Read my book, The Quran and the Moon. If you don't get a copy there, you can download it free of charge from my website. You can take a printer, you can print it out, okay? And follow that way of recitation. And all those who have done it, it took them a few months, 2-3 months, and I get the email. Sheikh, I no longer perceive time moving faster. Every single one of them. So this is how the Quran will heal the heart and restore the heart to health. The part of the lecture I don't have the time to give to you. The methodology for recitation of the Quran, the methodology for the study of the Quran. I'm going to be teaching this on Saturday and on Sunday in Rotterdam. And Rotterdam is only 1 hour away. That's all. 1 hour away. On Saturday after Salatul Zuhr, on Sunday after Salatul Zuhr, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. So 6 lectures in Rotterdam, and the name of the masjid, I think it's called, in English, Middelweg, but the Dutch have a different name for it.
Middenweg.
You heard it? All right. So those of you who can drive up, at least for the weekend, you can come up. All right. And the masjid, they also prepare meals. You pay a small amount, you get a nice meal, inshallah. So now we will allow you to ask your questions. And my apologies if I raise my voice sometimes. It's only frustration. Okay, anybody? Anybody has any questions?
Est-ce que vous avez des questions?
Est-ce qu'il va lire le Coran de la bonne manière, comme ça?
Are you going to recite the Quran in a good manner?
When we go to Rotterdam, I will teach the methodology for recitation of the Quran that I have not done here. And then I will teach the methodology for study of the Quran, which I have not done here. Then I'm going to take some special subjects in the Quran and apply that methodology. Yes, anybody else?
Yes, please.
si on ne réadapte pas justement le cœur avec le système lunaire, on risque des crises cardiaques.
Est-ce qu'on risque des...
Non, on risque des crises cardiaques. Si justement on
C'est une
réadapte-
affirmation ou
Non.
c'est une question? Je
Non,
pas
non.
compris.
Je dis, si on ne réadapte pas notre cœur avec le système lunaire
Mhm.
et qu'on reste justement avec cette perception de fast and fast and fast time, on risque des crises cardiaques.
Tu veux que je dise ça?
Oui.
He says that if we are not readapting our heart with the time of the moon, we also can risk heart failure,
Heart attacks.
heart attack. He said.
It's a comment.
Okay, our brother is suggesting that there will also be medical problems we face. If our heart is not beating in harmony with the moon, that it can risk a heart attack. If our heart is not beating in harmony with the moon. Yes? Yes.
The lectures in Rotterdam, you mentioned you're going to be 6 days in Rotterdam?
Saturday and Sunday from Salah to Zuhr
Yeah,
for 2 hours each.
okay.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the evening,
Okay.
2 hours each.
Okay, and those are all going about the recitation with the...
We begin with methodology for recitation of the Quran,
Okay,
and then we turn to methodology for study of the Quran, and then we turn to the application of that methodology to selected topics in the Quran. One of the first, of course, Gog and Magog in the Quran.
okay.
I have a question.
We must inscribe for this Rotterdam, or we can come walking over there.
You want to walk to Rotterdam?
I'm going to start just right now.
If you want to walk to Rotterdam, you can start now. What is the question?
Yeah, if it's the same question as I asked. If it's going to be streamed or...
If it's going to be recorded?
that's-
I don't know, I hope so. I hope it will be recorded. I can't say more than that.
No, he just...
That we must inscribe for the next
no.
we can come directly over.
No need to spread. You can just go it straight. I have a question,
Yeah.
please. You're talking about the lanterns and glowing and the fire into the chest. Is it a part of Tazkiyah Nafs that you're talking about?
That's right.
Okay.
When we spoke about the glass, which is so spotlessly clean that it glitters like a shining star. That is Tazkiyah. Tazkiyah is the process of purification. And Allah's messenger, he was sent, among other things, to purify you. وَيُزَكِّيكُمْ. And only after purification, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابِ. Only after purification, only then does he teach you the kitab. But when you study the Quran, you're supposed to graduate with wisdom. You are supposed to graduate with wisdom. Huh? But when we look, for example, at India, and the Indian people, Muslims and Christians, are waging a struggle 30, 40 years long to get the British out. Huh? And then finally they get the British out. And at that time when the British are leaving India, hundreds of thousands of people are mercilessly massacred and killed and slaughtered. Women are raped, children are destroyed. Huh? And every single one of them will stand on Judgment Day and ask for justice. Because Allah says, in my court you will get justice. Every single one of them. Where was wisdom? Where was wisdom in the leaders on both sides? And also the British. Where was wisdom? Which you ended up with this astonishing mess, M-E-S-S mess, this shameful mess that nobody talks about now. They only praise their leaders. This one is called the greatest leader, that one is called the greatest leader, and none of them showed wisdom. If one man showed some sparks of wisdom, he wasn't even a Muslim, he was a Hindu. A man named Gandhi. And he gave his life to protect Muslims. That's why they killed him. He was protecting Muslims who were being killed. That's why they killed him. And when they killed him, they were celebrating. They were sharing sweets. We've killed him. Yeah? Wisdom. وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. And he will teach you the book. And when you learn the book, you're supposed to graduate with wisdom. And wisdom was conspicuously absent in all those who graduated with a law degree in Britain. All of them graduated with law degrees in Britain. Wisdom was conspicuously absent. So this is the process, that you have to have purity first. Tazkiyah. Tazkiyah. Tazkiyah is the process of purification.
I have another question, if I may. When we go to the mosques and when we meet people, there is always that kind of question or that feeling that there is, the masab is different. And when people ask me which masab are you, or where are you from, or are you Shia, or are you Sunni, and I'm afraid to say that I'm just Muslim, and I'm scared to say, look, because they always want to know which masab, and I'm just saying that I'm a Muslim, and I'm not saying anything else because I'm scared of the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we don't have to split in groups, and also the hadith that we go at the end time we're going to be 73 parts, sects, and is it a good way to answer, or?
My teacher of blessed memory, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fazlur Rahman Ansari Rahimahullah, he said 50 years ago, he defied prevailing public opinion. He defied them. Because in India, you had to be either Brelvi or Deobandi or Wahhabi or Salafi or Sufi or this and that or the other. And he said, I'm none of these. He defied them. He said, I'm just a Muslim. And I have defied them as well. And I say, I don't care 2 peanuts if you're annoyed. Yes, because I have the internet to help me. And I can reach people above their heads. Even they close the doors of the masjid on me, I can still reach. I don't care 2 peanuts if you differ with me. Yeah. Mashallah, you're here. Wa alaikum salam. Finally. Yeah. Yeah, mashallah.
About the khatam,
Okay.
recitation.
1 minute. Explain to them about the differences. We must remain as a Muslim. Identify yourself as a Muslim.
Just one ummah.
Yes. And I live with the Quran. Command in the Quran, Wala tafarraku. A command in the Quran. Do not divide yourself into this and that and the other. So you are on the right path when you declare I am Muslim. And they are on the wrong path when they divide themselves. Next question. Yes.
There is a verse in
Mauritius.
There is a verse in Surah Rahman, Rabbul Mashriqaini wa Rabbul Maghribain. I was asking myself, what is your interpretation of this?
My teacher of blessed memory, he said this represents the summer equinox and the winter equinox. Yeah. Yes, I already had one from you.
It's about
A second question.
Yeah, but it's
A
not
second
about,
one. Okay, but no more.
Like you said in the Quran, there's the verses who are not to be interpreted, who are basically plain and
Yes, verses
clear.
either plain and clear or verses to be interpreted. Go ahead.
Does that mean that it is always possible to interpret it if they are open to interpretation? Because, for example, Surah Ar-Rahman, I mean, I've had this reflection that why is a verse repeated 31 times from Allah? Like,
And what is your answer?
I can't. No, I don't have the answer.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
that's what I'm asking.
Yes, okay. Yes, there are verses which have to be interpreted. The Gospel is the same thing, the Torah is the same thing, the Vedas is the same thing. And when you interpret a verse, a sacred verse or a hadith, it is only Allah who can confirm that you are correct. So when you interpret the Quran, you must always say Allah knows best, because I can be right or I can be wrong. And you must not ever pick up boxing gloves over interpretation. If an interpretation is correct, for example, that the Jasad is Dajjal, okay? No one that I know of in 1400 years, no one ever interpreted the Quran that the Jasad is Dajjal. But I gave that interpretation and I have survived. I still have my head on my shoulders, okay? If an interpretation is correct, then it becomes the truth. And the truth will survive. The caravan will keep on moving, even though the dogs may be barking. But if an interpretation is wrong, you will still get blessings for having made the effort, but tomorrow it will be forgotten.
As for the people who are doing like hifz.
Go ahead.
You want to proceed?
Yeah, my answer to his
Oh,
question.
yeah.
Okay, we can allow 2 more questions because we have to give you time to go and get the books, and I want to autograph them for you. And when you want me to autograph your book, please help me. Write your name for me on a piece of paper. If you want me to autograph your book, just help me. Write your name on a piece of paper, so I don't have to ask you, and my hearing is declining, and I put your name. And then we have Salatul Maghrib in about half an hour from now. Okay, 1, 2, okay, these 2, and then we finish. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Sheikh, for giving your time to us. I hope I can express my question to you well, that you can understand. So you give us information about the Quran and how to study the Quran, and guidance how we can build ourselves a better Muslim. But my question is, you also give course about eschatology, like the end of times, the study of end of times. We live conforming your teachings in the end of times. Are we also able as a Muslim to do something positive, not only for Muslims or for ourselves, but also for the rest of society who are not always Muslim, like Christians, or doesn't matter what kind of lifestyle they have for full humanity, like not fighting against them as with our religion, showing that it's best for everybody, but to build society in a positive way in this end of times. Is it worth it to build this society together and to make good propositions for everybody out of our intentions doing good for this world in these end times?
Good.
Yes or no? Because I am struggling, like, is Hijrah the only solution in this dunya? Do we have to fear? Or can we continue building a society without fear and saying, yes, we are Muslims, so what? And I have this view all over the world of
I understand your question. I understand your question. Is it necessary for me to leave Belgium, leave Britain, leave France, and go back to Morocco, go back to Pakistan? Or is it possible for me to remain in Belgium and try to build a better society? Good? Well then, we have to determine whether this ship is destined to sink or not. Will this ship remain afloat?
No.
Or will this ship sink? Is there anything which can prevent this ship from sinking?
No.
And if this ship is destined to sink, will it take all on board into the hellfire? And if I want to get off this ship, but my wife says, you can go, but I'm staying. And the children say, Papa, you can go, but we're staying. What am I to do? The answer from the Quran is located in my book, The Quran, the Great War and the West, and I don't have half an hour to take all that is in the Quran to answer the question. But what is clear is that this ship is sinking and that there is nothing that could prevent it from sinking. So if you're on board a sinking ship, it makes no sense to be trying to build a new world order on a sinking ship because it's destined to sink. When you turn to other than the Quran, you might get a different answer. But from the Quran and from our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, we know for certain that this is a sinking ship and nothing can prevent it from sinking. Having said that, I'm amazed that there are so many in the world who are not Muslims, who are doing a better job than Muslims in trying to correct the wrongs in the world today. Yes?
Yes.
Venezuela, under Hugo Chavez, stood up with amazing courage and integrity to defy Yankee imperialism and oppression. Hugo Chavez was so successful that George Bush had to flee from South America. Nobody wanted to listen to him. And when they attacked Venezuela and reduced the Bolivar to toilet paper, that's what they do. They attack your money. And the people of Venezuela are suffering like the people of Pakistan now. Hugo Chavez dies, and Nicolas Maduro replaces him. MashaAllah, they're here, the children are here, MashaAllah. Okay. MashaAllah. Hugo Chavez dies and Nicolas Maduro replaces him. And they still defy Yankee imperialism. with great courage and integrity. I am happy and amazed by Bolivia and Evo Morales, and how Bolivia, this is a native Indian who used to cultivate the drugs. And Evo Morales becomes the Prime Minister, the President, and with courage and integrity they defy Yankee imperialism. I'm amazed by Western scholars, who are even secular, who rip apart the monetary system as bogus and repressive and exploitative. They know the subject better than I do. I learned from them. And my Muslim people, they're eating either the couscous or the biryani and going home and sleep. While those scholars in the Western world, in Russia, in China, and they show such amazing scholarship. From them came BRICS to challenge the International Monetary Fund. Nothing from the world of Islam, nothing from the world of Islam. With all their PhDs, all of it. Nothing with all their Maulanas and Muftis and Shuyuk. Nothing from the world of Islam to challenge the International Monetary Fund. But BRICS came from China. BRICS came from China. Communist China. And Russia supporting China. And India supporting China. Even though India and China are loggerheads, India supporting China. And then Brazil and South Africa. So yes, I know the ship is sinking, but I have to show my admiration for those in the West and outside of the West who are challenging oppression in the world. All right, that's enough for today. I have one more? Oh yeah, sorry. Where are you from?
From Guinea.
Again, another one from Guinea. Okay. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sheikh, from deep of my heart, I want to thank you for all the work what you do for this ummah. I only have one question. What if you live in a community who follow the moon of Arabia Saudi, and you are, like me, live there, and you live with the Jama'ah, and you have to be with the Jama'ah, but you know they're following the moon from Arab Saudi. What you have to do?
You will then lose one day of Ramadan, because they will celebrate the Eid on Jummah, and we will celebrate the Eid on Yawm al-Sabt. And that one day of Ramadan you've lost. On Judgment Day, when you say to Allah, but what could I do? I had to follow the Jamaat.
That's right.
Yeah. What could I do? I had to follow the Jamaat. What did Allah say?
And the argument they use is the community, they're just telling the people, yeah, we don't create division. That's what they say. I say, no, it's not okay.
Allah sent the Quran to people who think. Yeah. And if you decide to switch off your brain and follow the mob, you deserve the fate on Judgment Day, because you expected to think. All right? No one has seen the moon. But Saudi says it's Eid. So no. You defy your Jamaat. You defy your masjid. And you fast for one more day, because the moon was not seen. And tell them, you go your way, and I'll go mine. I have to do that in my life for so many years. For so many years I have been a solitary voice. Nobody agreeing with me. All of them saying he's crazy. All of them saying he's crazy. Look at the story now. Look at the story now. They don't dare to come in front of me. They don't dare to come in front of me. Look at the story now. So stand up for what is right, and you will prevail. All right, that's enough for today. You can go ahead and take a look at the books, and somebody take a piece of paper, write your name.